Hello everyone, welcome to this week's Devar Torah. I hope you're well. I hope you all coped with the heat. Now we're sort of back to British summer. I've never quite appreciated it so much. This week we're going to read the Surah of Pinchos, which spends a very long time telling us about accounting of the Jewish people, which took place in the desert, and then it enumerates each tribe, how many members it had between the age of 20 and 60. Those were the people who would go to battle. So it starts off at Reuven, which were the families of Reuven, and how their numbers totaled 43,730, and the same for Shimon, etc. It's all going through all the tribes. We see some had grown since the last census, and some had declined. And obviously, we know the Torah doesn't waste words. And the idea of each tribe being counted tells us how everyone's important, how we're not just a big nation. We look at the individuals, we count. Every person is valued. But one of the interesting things we can learn from the countings, from the results of the census, if you like, and of course we've just had a census in this country, and censuses are important to plan for the future. One of the interesting things we find is that Binyamin, the tribe of Binyamin, was a very small tribe. It relatively had 45,600, not so necessarily a very small tribe, but certainly by no means the biggest. And the tribe of Dan was 64,400. Now, if we go back to the beginning of the Torah, we find that if we look at the sons of Jacob and their families, Binyamin had 10 children, 10 sons. And Dan only had one, a son called Chushim. And if you remember, Chushim was actually hearing impaired. He couldn't hear. And that's why the story, when they took Jacob up to be buried in Israel from the land of Egypt, he wanted to be buried in Canaan, and they took him up. And then the descendants of Esau were arguing that they should have it, and they sent Naphtali back to bring the documents to prove that it was Jacob's right to be buried there. Chushim, the son of Dan, didn't really hear what was going on. He just saw this embarrassment and this disgrace going on, that the coffin was being left lying around. He took matters into his own hands, and he killed Esau. But the interesting point is that we see that the Dan, from one disabled, hearing impaired son, he ended up with more descendants, over nearly 20,000 more descendants than Benjamin from his 10 sons. And that teaches us a very powerful thing. Often people think, they look at the natural world, they think, look, it's good, I'm okay, everything's fine, I've got a good job, I've got a good qualification, I run a good business, or people think, Baruch Hashem, I've had lots of children, so therefore I'm going to have lots of nachas in my old age, lots of grandchildren. Things do not always work out the way we perhaps think they might or expect. And I remember once seeing this a number of times in our own community, where being a communal rabbi, sometimes you see people who have a number of children and they don't see any Yiddish nachas. And not so long ago, I buried a couple, an elderly couple, the Jacobs from the Jacobs family, and they have one son who lives in Manchester. Baruch Hashem, he had a big family, and they had lots of good and a lot of nachas. So we have to remember that much as we try and do our best to make the most of every situation, we do not know. We do not know how things will pan out in the future. And everything, of course, only pans out according to the way of Hashem. And that's what we always say in davening, Rabbis, Machshavos, B'lev Ish. There's many thoughts in the heart of man, V'asas Hashem Hisokum, but only God's Eitzah, only God's advice and way will stand in the end. So we should never give up. A person, even in a difficult situation, always has to know. Imagine thinking of Dan, he probably thought to himself, what future would I have as a tribe? And Binyamin, he probably thought to himself, well, my future's it's pretty much nailed on. But in the end, Dan overtook Binyamin. We never know where things are going to end up. We just have to serve Hashem in the best way that we can. Wish you all a wonderful Shabbos.